Greetings everyone and welcome to the most requested video I've ever had, and that is how to paint Grimdark black armor. I do have a multitude of black armor color recipes, however in this video we're going to be paying special attention to the Black Legion. I've specifically chosen Chaos as this will allow me to go really to town with the Grimdarkness and show you multiple techniques that you can pick and choose to utilize within your Grimdark painting style. You don't have to use every single technique that I teach in this video. Hopefully, as I always do with my videos, is so that you can cherry pick which techniques that you want to apply to your style. As I always do in my videos, I'm going to be offering you alternative colours, techniques and ways that you can achieve similar results. So the first thing that we need to talk about is priming and our rust base coat. You're probably watching this and thinking, wait a minute, this is a tutorial on black armour, so why is he painting it brown? But this is for a very specific reason, because we need to get like a rusty base tone down first of all. Now there are multiple ways that you can do this. I've used Stynalrez primers with a little bit of Vallejo, but essentially all you need to do is get like a rusty base coat down first of all. Now I know there are some painters out there that don't use or even have access to an airbrush, so I'll quickly go over some ways that you can still achieve these rusty results. If you know me, I use a variety of different primers, whether this be a rattle can or through an airbrush. So if you've not got access to an airbrush, you could maybe use something like Hyrax Brown from Colourforge, and also other companies do have similar paints to that, or like a colour matching tone to the Rhinox Hide, and then you can just go in there and stipple like I am with the Scrag Brown or some oranges just to achieve your rusty tones. Alternatively, I do have a colour recipe on this channel for like a rusty base coat, and that is going to act as a great foundation that we can build upon a little bit later. Alternatively, if you don't even have access to these primers and you just maybe use a black primer, then just prime it up in black and stipple on some Rhinox Hide, some different browns like Hull Reds and some oranges, and then you are good to go. So this is where we need to be. This is just a foundation that we need to get this rusty base coat. Then you're set for the rest of this tutorial. Now if you're not sure on which colours to get or what's available in your country, I will in the description box below have a paint list, and in there I will give you the alternative colours and from the other companies, which is like a colour match to like the Colourforge if you want to go down the rattle can route. Now using some Abbadon black, we're going to apply this to our miniature with a sponge. Now if you've ever done sponge chipping, it's the exact same thing, we're just sort of doing it in reverse. A lot of people always ask what sort of sponge do I use, and because I've had Forge World miniatures in the past, they do come with the packaging. You get these like little thin sheets of sponge. I find them really good. However, any sponge will work, and I always tell people if you've not got any sponges, then go to your local grocery store to the car section where they sell like all the car cleaning kits and stuff. Buy one sponge, they're usually around £1 or $1, and break little bits off of it, and that will literally last you almost a lifetime, because you don't need a big amount, and just get some tweezers and then we can start to apply it to the miniature. The reason I prefer to do it with this sponge chipping technique is because of the microscopic marks that it leaves. A lot of people do say you can get the copy and paste effects if you're not careful, but because we're applying it in multiple layers on this miniature, it really doesn't matter and it's not going to show up. One tip I will give you, such as the shoulder pauldron, I start, whichever panel you're going to do, I tend to start in the middle and work my way towards the edges, as round the edges that's where I want the rust to be. You will inevitably catch some areas that are going to go over the edges, and that's fine. That's the sort of effects that I'm going to go for, but it's just a case of working your way around the miniature and just do the stippling technique. And if you want to go back to other areas and apply a little bit more, but areas like down near the legs, I tend to leave a little bit more rusty and a little bit more chipped, as those areas are naturally areas where are going to be scuffed up and banged. But doing this method, because it's like unclean, it's really going to play into that chaos and give the armour the appearance of years and years of wear and tear. Now you will inevitably come across sections that are a little bit too hard to reach with the sponge, and for these you can just go back in with your brush and just stipple and tap it and put some little scratches in there. if you want towards the edges or some of the harder to reach areas. After that, we're going to use the exact same technique but in a more controlled manner, and we're going to load up some Corvus Black onto a new sponge and pay special attention to highlight areas such as the shoulder pauldrons at the top, some of the legs and the knees, and obviously around the top of his carapace. And as a final highlight, we're going to mix in with the Corvus Black 50/50 with Store Vermin Furr, and we're just going to apply this a little bit tighter to some more of those highlight areas. And when you're done, you'll have this beautiful chipped, awful highlighted effect that's in scale and really gives the armor that worn and lived in look. This technique also works with any other colors that you might want to apply to your miniature, whether it's red or blue, such as this helmet on the top of his carapace that's been like impaled through a spike. Obviously I want it to be an ultramarine, so I've just gone in there and applied this same technique using some blue. Now moving on to the trim, and again, some of the colour, I'm not going to go over every single colour in this video, you can find them in the paint list below, because I really want to focus on the actual black armour and the weathering. But for the gold trim, I wanted a bit more of a warmer tone, so I just went round and base coated everything with dark bronze from Pro Acryl, and then I get a little small brush, and I'm not really like trying to be neat or anything at this point. I've got some Necro gold from scale 75, and I'm almost dry brushing it onto all the gold areas, and then after that I give it a final highlight of peridot alchemy from scale 75 as well. And because we're using it in a dry brushing motion, it'll just catch all those raised edges and stay in line with the chipped armor that we've done, as when you dry brush it on you get this pitted effect along with some minute microscopic scratches. All silver metallic areas were dry brushed base coated with scale 75 thrash metal, and then given a dry brush over with run fang steel as a final highlight. The reason I dry brush this on is because we've got that rust base coat down first of all from the beginning, and this will just stay in all the crevice areas, which will leave them a little bit darker and also lean more into that rusted effect that we'll always keep trying to achieve with this miniature. Poor guy, he's got a really rusted armor. Oh, also, I get a lot of heat for putting rust on my miniatures, and a lot of people say, oh, ceramite doesn't rust, and you know, I say we're painting Grimdark, it's your miniature, do what you want. And also, if you say that ceramite doesn't rust, go and tell that to the Space Marine 2 creators. Now at this point is where you want to go around and base coat out anything else that you've got onto the miniature and whatever colours that you like. Again, the list is below in the description before we move on to some unifying washes. And for this, I'm going to be using an enamel which is Villainy Inks Goons Grime. It's the perfect blend of brown and green, which is going to be amazing for our miniature and really leaning towards that chaos. So when it comes to using the Villainy inks, I always recommend getting something like a flat tile or a palette like this and just place it on there. And we're going to treat these as though it's a wet palette, and I like to call these my dry palette. And I'm just going to splodge a little bit on like you would with any acrylic paint, and just think of it as an acrylic paint. However, rather than use water, we're going to use some mineral spirits as the thinning agent, as though it is the water, to manipulate and thin our enamel. And I'm mixing this in a 1:1 ratio. So if I've got 2 drops of Goons Grime, I'm going to add 2 drops of mineral spirits. Now I'm applying this and I'm using a brush application. In previous videos you've probably seen me do it with an airbrush, but I'm doing it with a brush application because I don't really want much to go onto the black armor itself. We're going to treat that a little bit later on in the video and you'll see how, but it really doesn't matter if you do get some onto the black armor. And I think at some points, like around the feet and stuff, I do actually apply it straight onto the black armor itself. But just work your way around it as it's like a wash, like one of your Citadel inks, and just let it run into all those crevices and just work your way around the miniature and paying special attention. And in some areas you can apply it a little bit thicker around like the gold trim so that it shows up a little bit more. And then you want to give it around 10 to 15 minutes to dry. And the beauty of enamels is, like with an acrylic, once it's on there forever. However, with an enamel, we can reactivate it with the mineral spirits and a Q-tip and remove anything that we don't want. And I just very slowly, it's just a very light application of the Goons Grime and just a very light application to take some off, leaving it in those crevice areas. You just work your way around and then give it again around 15 to 10 to 15 minutes to dry, and then you can use a blow dryer as well to speed up that process. And when you dry, you'll be left with this really nice grimdark, matte, dusty effect, which leans perfect into what we're trying to create. If you do want to grab some of the villainy inks for yourself, or if you've never tried them, then I do have some affiliate links in the description below. So if you want to head over and grab some of those, it helps me out as well. I get a little bit of a kickback from that, and it just helps me create these content and keep pumping these videos out. Now going back to the black armor itself, this is where we're really going to make it look grimdark, and for this, you've probably guessed it already, we're going to use Dirty Downs Rust. Now if you're not familiar with Dirty Downs Rust, it is the best rust product that is available on the market. It's like magic. It's water reactive, so you can just manipulate it with water, and I've just got this, and I even put this on my wet palette. And if you want to learn more and get a more in-depth look to Dirty Downs Rust and the ways that you can apply it, then I've got plenty of videos here on this channel that explain it, and I've even got like a masterclass on it as well, so please go and check that out as well if you want to learn more about it. And again, I'm just working my way around. Now what I'm going to hit is all the areas that are sort of left. We're not going to do it to every single area because it's going to be a little bit overkill, but most of the areas, especially down now near the feet, for that rust base coat that we applied very at the start, at the beginning, we're going to start to tap it and apply it onto those, adding some streaks here and there, but just work your way around your miniature. And again, if you want to make it a little bit brighter, you just add a little bit more water, or if you want it to be a little bit more darker, just add a little bit more of the Dirty Downs product itself. But paying special attention to places like the feet, or areas that would naturally be a little bit more rusty. But for some of the more rusted areas, I want to emphasize this a lot more and even give it some texture. And I'd never tried this before. This was the first time I did it, and I really enjoyed how it turned out. And I've mixed in a little bit of Typhus Corrosion, and again, I'm only applying this to the lower half of the miniature around his legs, and this will get you some really nice texture. But some of the heavier rusted areas, don't go too mad with this, little is less, but I was really happy with how it turned out. And again, if you want to learn more about the Dirty Downs Rust and get some different ways and just overall learn about the products, then please check out the masterclass series that I did over on this channel. Next up is the heat effect that's coming out of the vents on the Terminator armor, and for this I've just thinned down some Pro Acryl Bold Titanium White, and I know you probably hear other channels talk about it. It is the best white. I've not used it before, but I recently went out and bought some, and yeah, I can confirm it is absolutely amazing. The pigment's really strong, and it goes on there, and it doesn't thicken up like other white inks and doesn't look really chalky, but I've just thinned it down with some water and just let it run into those cracks. And then I've got some orange contrast paint, and I've just let that run also into the cracks. And then finally I've got some Avalon Sunset, really thin down again, and I've just applied this into the center of those areas. And then when that's dry, I'll just go back to my black, and you can almost do it in a dry brushing motion just to catch those like little tiny vents that appear like the grill section, and I've just painted them in black again, and that'll give you that really nice heat effect. And finally, let's go over a really easy and effective skin recipe for Chaos Skin, and I've given it a base coat of Vallejo Game Color Succubus skin, and I've applied this in 2 thin coats all over the head, and then I've given it a wash of Citadel Targor Raid Shade. Now to build up your highlights, I've literally, the skin recipe is just 2 colors and then a couple of washes, so each successive highlights that I'm going to go up, I'm just going to add a little bit of AK Luminous Flesh to the Succubus skin with each successive layer that we go up. And my recommendation for this is, because the AK paints are quite strong in their pigment, is just start off with a tiny little bit, apply it, see how you get on, and then apply a little bit more, add a little bit more till you get to the desired brightness that you want. Now obviously, because we've done the washes, I'm just paying special attention to like the eyebrows and the top of his head and the cheekbones, but just work your way around. I can only recommend adding a tiny little bit of the luminous flesh at a time so that it's not too strong and in your face. However, if you do find you've gone a little bit overboard, you can just add a little bit more of the Succubus skin and just work your way backwards. But once you've got to the desired brightness that you want, what we're going to do then is get some Colia green shade, and as a glaze we're going to apply it around the eyes to make the eyes look really dead and awful, and then I just glaze a little bit into like the cheekbones and the side of his head. And this for me just gives you a really nice quick and easy skin color recipe. And then finally, if you're brave enough, just put a little dot of white or ice yellow into the eyes. I've not gone in and I've not painted any pupils for me because this guy's chaos. There's just something a little bit creepy and a little bit off about just pure white eyes. And that brings us to the end of this tutorial. So guys, I hope you have enjoyed it and I hope you've learned something from this tutorial. Again, this is just one of my like black armor recipes. If you want to see more of a clean looking one, let's say, you know, you're going to do like Black Templars or something, hit me up in the comment section below and I'll go over some more black armor recipes. As some of you will also know, I am a member of the Grimdark Compendium and I've recently put some crazy kit bash videos, and there's a few videos over there from myself. So if you want to go over and check them out, again, links will be in the description below. Guys, it would really help me out if you could just hit that like button. It just takes 1 second to hit it. If you want to leave me a comment in the comment section below, and if you have enjoyed this and you want to keep up to date with all the latest videos, then make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. So until next time guys, I will catch you in my next video.